pumpkin people, Cindy here. I am in greenhouse 1. Right behind me is the 2030 Tobec squash plant, and we are right in the middle of pollination time. I love this time of year because I am filled with so much hope and optimism and excitement, and I'm dreaming about the way-offs come September and October, and dreaming about world records and big wins. And so right now it's kind of an easy time in the pumpkin patch. The vines are just starting to need to be buried. We're pollinating, and it's just a fun time to be a giant pumpkin grower. And so the fruit on the 2030 behind me is 8 days old. It's a really early pollination, and I pollinated it on June 10th, which normally I wouldn't go for something that early, but we've got a couple early way-offs that would put it around 110 to 112 days old at the time of harvest, which is kind of pushing it for me, but I think I'm going to keep it. And so when these baby pumpkins are around 10 days old, then it's time to start thinking about underlayment. So let's take a look what I mean there. So here we are in greenhouse 1, and I don't know if you can hear that rain beating down on the plastic, but it's a good day to be in the greenhouse today. Here's that 2030 Tobec squash, big gorgeous plant, and this is the underlayment that I have. In other words, what is underneath the baby pumpkin as it grows. So let's talk about that. When you as a grower have decided on your keeper, like I have here, you're going to want to position that vine in a way that's not going to interfere with the fruit as it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And so you can see the main vine coming straight into this pumpkin, and then on a very hot day when it was quite young, I took the secondary vine coming off and I bent it around, and I got it well back from its shoulders, and I think I used a stake or a piece of rebar to kind of hold that there as it continued to grow. And then on this side, that's the main vine that continued to grow, and I swept that back as well, because these pumpkins' shoulders are going to get really big and wide, and so we need those vines pretty far out of the way. And I may even try to sweep this main vine back a little bit more. You can see how I even pulled up some of those anchor roots out of the ground to keep that loose so that I can position it. So that main vine comes around. So I may bring it back forward now that it's well out of the way. I do have a backup that I pollinated yesterday on this one, but this is going to be my keeper. I like the color, I like the shape, I like the peduncle, which is also known as the stems, nice and long, and hopefully this will be the new world record squash. So once you've got those vines positioned and it gets to be about softball size and getting ready to touch the ground, you're going to want to start thinking about underlayment. What I use in the patch are a few things. The first thing I do is I put down a small square of remay. That's like 18 inches by 18 inches square. And then while that is slid into place, then I will put a large piece of remay down under it, and I can just slide it right on under single-handedly, and the remay against remay slides so well. And then finally I will slide a piece of plywood. This is a 1/2 inch sheet of plywood, 4 foot by 4 foot, and I slide that all the way back beyond the stem and beyond the vines. I do not put anything underneath the pumpkins whatsoever. I've done it lots of different ways, like with beds of sand. I think they slide better and give you a better chance at a nice flat bottom come harvest. If it's just pumpkin or squash right on top of the remay, no sand bed whatsoever. Now you notice here I've got a little rock in place, and I've got another one over here lifting that vine up. I want to make sure ultimately that this stem is level with the stigma or the blossom end. And so what I want this fruit to do is to drop down a little bit more on this end. So it wasn't quite touching the ground when I put the underlayment on, and I want to continue it in that same posture despite the fact that I put stuff under it. I don't want it to touch the ground yet. See, it's so close, not there yet, because I want this to go down just a little bit more, and that's gonna get me level from here to here. I want to always maintain a nice level line from the blossom end through the stem, and that's gonna keep me from hopefully not letting the blossom tuck under as it grows, or the stem getting underneath of it. So while they're young like this, you can kind of manipulate the way they're gonna grow a little bit easier than farther down the line when they're a lot too big to maneuver. Okay, you can see steps 1 and 2 right here. I've got the small piece of mill fabric under the fruit, and then I slide in that 4x4 sheet of plywood, 1/2 inch thick, so it's well past the stem. Now you can see how I've finally slid the 4x4 sheet of mill fabric in between those two, and then I put a little table on top of that. And finally, I cover that table with a sheet, and I put a rock on top of it. And that's going to keep that baby squash from getting sunburned and keep it shaded, and the table from flying off in the wind.